Hello, and thanks for joining us tonight for Majority Caucus Live from our studios here in Accra on your multi-TV Joy News channel. Tonight we'll be discussing the issue of fuel price increments, if you like, or the petroleum prices in terms of the revision that has been made by the NPA and, of course, in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy. But before we do that, I'm reluctant to comment on this, but earlier today, a group known as Preserve My Vote or Let My Vote Be Heard, something like that, registered their protest and displeasure at the Parliament House. And I was sad to hear an interview granted by Esla Usu on, Joy FM. She was trying desperately, albeit without success, to defend the fact that she has the right and she thinks it is legitimate to call the president a thief. I'm just saddened by this comment by a member of parliament. I thought that by now a person of her stature would have, learnt her lessons and do what is right and behave, as an honorable member of parliament. I still maintain the view that she hasn't earned the title honorable, so I will never address her by the title honorable. And many people have been asking, and I feel tempted to put this question to the viewers, whether or not Esla herself, within her personal record, she's clean. The allegations that she once had a husband who is a medical doctor, and she got pregnant and he took her to Saudi Arabia to give birth. She delivered successfully. But subsequently, the doctor got to know through some tests conducted that the baby is not his, and so he divorced her. I mean, these were questions people were asking. I don't know if they are true. I just want the public to judge if indeed she herself is clean, and that she was also in the office of the Attorney General when Papa Upsu Ankuma was appointed Attorney General, and that he had the comfort of sacking her. I mean, the discomfort of sacking her because she attempted with some failure to seduce him. I mean, these are questions that people are asking that really her personal record is not the best. But I'm sure in the coming days, we would have the proper platform to address some of these concerns. Like I said, it disgusts me to hear her speak in this very unparliamentary tone. But tonight, like I said, we'll be discussing the fuel issues, and I have in the studio Mr. Edward Bauer, who is the PRO of the Energy Ministry. Also joined in the studio is the Editor-in-Chief of the Ghanaian Lens. I'm talking about Kobi Fiagbe. Is also in the house to help us do justice to the topic. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry I have to do that because my viewers kept asking that Esla should be put in the proper perspective, and they needed answers to the questions that they've been asking, which I asked today on the platform. But let me start with you, Edward Bauer. Really, Ghanaians are wondering. I mean, there is doomsaw, water rationing, and now fuel price increment justification.
Thank you very much, and then good evening to your viewers. As somebody who works within the energy sector, I wouldn't say for a moment that this is one of the best times for me.
Clearly, in the hot seat.
Basically, not because of the fact that maybe there's so much work to be done, but just because Ghanaians expect a bit more from us.
Okay.
I think that Ghanaians are not excited, and rightly so, about situations in the power sector. Obviously, Ghanaians are not excited that fuel prices have increased. And no person, whether it is in Ghana or is in the US or is in the UK or whatever, will be excited about things like that. And so they have a legitimate concern to express what they feel. But I think that zeroing down on the question about fuel increase is coming just closely on the heels of these challenges we have in other sectors of the energy subsector. I think that before any government decides to increase fuel prices, it is not always a palatable thing. I know that government had tried all options to see whether there was a possibility of still sustaining whatever the status quo was, and then ensuring that at least Ghanaians still had all the normal things that they were doing. The government also realized that you had two options. You know, there's a saying that goes that when you are faced with two evils, you choose a lesser one. There were two evils. What were the evils? The first evil was that we had since 2011 never increased fuel prices. The subsidies accrued to PSPs, that's the petroleum service provider, was mounting at very unsustainable levels. For example, just in 2012 alone, we had, in terms of subsidy accrued to PSPs, 1.2 billion. Out of it, government was able to pay 682 million. So it means that we still even had in excess of 500 million to pay in terms of owing PSPs. Government's inability to pay this amount was not because of the federal government was not willing to do it, but just because, to a very large extent, mostly subsidies are not heavily budgeted for. And so government will always have to find money from point A and bring it.
So let me get this clear for my viewers. There's no specific amount in the budget that we are going to use so amount to subsidize.
No. Because what happens is, for example, if you look at our last increment, we pegged the international crude price at 107. As at the day that we were increasing the fuel prices, even though we pegged it at 116 and an exchange rate of $1.89, the truth of the matter was that on that particular day, the international crude price was 119. So it was even higher than even the figure that we had put there. So over the period, government was paying these monies. And so government felt that, look, one, the essence of subsidies in themselves will have to be defined. And if we define the subsidy, why the subsidies are introduced, the next question we'll ask ourselves, are those subsidies getting to the people we intend making them get to? And if you will permit me, I want to make this point very clear. I believe that the state believes in the saying that goes that, I don't know, you are a Muslim maybe, I'm a Christian, that tells you that remember that the poor shall always be with you.
Of course.
The state always has it in its mind that, look, the vulnerable are with us, the poor are with us, and therefore we must always have this safety net, cater for them. And so these subsidies mostly are targeted at them to ensure that they at least they are able to live some level of decent life. But we realized that these subsidies were not really getting to the targeted groups. I will use one product as a classical example. I don't know the last time you went to a village, but I don't know also the last time you used kerosene. When was the last time you used kerosene?
I don't remember.
Kerosene is seen as one of our social products. If you were to go into a village now, mostly people don't buy kerosene in liters. They buy them in Coke bottles. You go to a village, you go to the nearest house, they sell it to you in Coke bottle. A Coke bottle is about 330 ml in terms of volume. They sell that particular Coke bottle for 1 cedi 20 pesos kerosene. If you want to get a liter will be about times 3, am I right? Yes, times 3 to give you 1,000 ml. So that will be times 3. So that will be 1 cedi 20 pesos times 3. That will be 3 cedis 60 pesos. So it means that at the village level, the person is buying effectively 1 liter of kerosene for 3 cedis 60 pesos. Meanwhile, at the export price, it was subsidized to the extent that you were supposed to pay only 91 pesos for it. So the person is paying about 4 times the amount that the state has said that because you are poor pay. So it means that the money we're heavily investing in subsidizing kerosene was not getting there. Obviously, people will make an argument, where was it then? Because kerosene was coming. Unfortunately, this subsidy was going to benefit one, unscrupulous people who were using kerosene, because if you look at the flash points between kerosene and diesel, it's so close. So what happens is that they use kerosene, mix it with diesel, and because kerosene is a subsidized product, and they mix it with diesel, they sell it at the price of diesel and make supernormal profits.
And there are no checks and balances?
The MPA is mandated to do that. But you see, I've always said that we have the police to ensure that there are no armed robbers. But still, people still find ways of stealing. You even have situations where you have teachers to ensure that people pass exams, but we still have people failing. So you still will have MPA around, but the truth of the matter is that these things will still happen. But I think that whenever there is a policy that is introduced, the next thing you will have to ask yourself fundamentally is that, is it possible to re-strategize? And that is one of the re-strategies that government employed. That we take off some of these subsidies on these petroleum products to make it manageable for government to be able to make. Because in fact, if you look at the NPA's own statement that was issued, they're telling us from the day they increase the fuel prices, the next 2 weeks, in terms of under recovery, so we are talking about 23.2 million that government will have to pay in terms of subsidies. The projection for the whole year is about 350 million. So it means that we still will have to pay subsidies. But it's just that it is now at a manageable level that government can take care of. But what government is doing in place of that, look, instead of subsidizing these things, is it possible to roll out some other projects, plans that will directly benefit or impact positively in the lives of the people? Today, if you monitor the news, newspaper, you have realized that the Minister of Finance spoke about some social interventions that will happen.
Mitigating
you see that
measures.
Yes, you realize that, for example, the Minister of Energy talked about the fact that, look, if we are increasing the price of...
I would come to you, so we'll look at the mitigating measures. But let me find out from Kobe. Kobe, quickly, from the government perspective, this is purely technocratic. Do you think it is a viable idea to increase the fuel price, really, amidst doomsday and water rationing?
I wish I were authorized to speak on behalf of government, but as a person who wholeheartedly supported the NDC and still support the NDC and therefore President John Mahama, I would think that given a choice between yes and no in terms of subsidy removal, President Mahama and therefore anybody at all in the NDC would go for the no. Because obviously, as a social democratic party, our objective is to help as many of the vulnerable people as possible, to protect them and to ensure that they move from the status of vulnerable to become capable of doing things for themselves and building upon lives that will also help them to help others. So obviously, it's not something that, given a choice, ordinarily you would do. But let's look at this. Like Bawa was trying to say a short while ago, what are subsidies meant for? They are meant for making lives a lot easier for our people, especially those who we describe as vulnerable. Now there's a typical example that I always give. You are living in, say, an out village in, say, Suhum, somewhere in the hinterland of Suhum, not Suhum proper, but Domi or wherever, outskirts of Suhum. Now, the nearest hospital is about 25-30 minutes drive away. Your roads are untarred. The roads are bad. So in the evenings, in fact, you really cannot even get a vehicle. Assuming that my wife were living in that or was living in that area and she's taken ill in the night and she has to go, I will have to either carry her on my back or find a neighbor's motorbike or something, but there's no vehicle around. Meanwhile, the subsidy is supposed to have made things easier for her to get to the hospital.
Okay.
You understand? Now, so why, if that is the case, why don't you take that subsidy away? Rather use it to build a hospital for me nearby.
But the question is, how are we going to monitor that this money, instead of being used to subsidize, is going to use for developmental projects? Are we going to be able to
But that is why we have MPs. That is why we have assemblymen. That is why we have elected people, not based on partisan politics only, but also because we have expectations that they will monitor our well-being and welfare. Thankfully, this is something that from the get-go, all political parties are agreed on, that look, subsidies has not been helpful. All the political parties, CPP, NDC, MPP, all of them from the get. In fact, I recall that even before the election proper, somebody like Kandapa was always out there saying that, look, remove subsidies because it's not helping the people whom it is intended to help. Several times over, and subsequent to after the elections, I've heard people like Gabi Asaro-Chidaku also make the point that, look, these things are not...
But some don't even believe. I remember you on a show with, is it Yabuabin? And he said there's no subsidy. He wasn't convinced. They don't believe there's subsidy.
You can always make the mischievous argument that because there are taxes
Yes.
on it, government
Once
is
you
not
tax-
subsidizing. But you see, we've been through that road. The reason why we've been through that road is that the MPP has been in power, the NDC has been in power. So there is no way anybody can say this and then let's go. I'm saying that during the time of the MPP, they insisted there were subsidies, and we believe there were subsidies. Just now, we believe there are subsidies and they are being removed. But the truth of the matter is that even as the subsidies are being removed, government is still going to be paying a whooping amount of 22 million Ghana cedis every 2
that is a
weeks.
huge sum of money. But allow me to take my
subsidize.
first commercial break. When I come back, Kobe Fiagbe will continue the submission. Stay with me. And hello, welcome back. You're still on Majority Caucus Live on your multi-TV with me, Ali Dawood, as your host. Before the break, Kobe, you were telling us about the justification as an independent person, how you perceive it.
No, I wasn't talking about justification per se. Yeah, it may sound as though it was justification. But I was telling you about the stark reality, the stark reality of it. So that at the end of the day, if I am living in a hinterland and subsidy is supposed to get me easy access by way of transportation and movement to the nearest hospital, and it is not doing that for me, the other way is that take the subsidy off and bring me the hospital in my locality.
But Kobe, there's one striking observation. When you look at the tax component, there's what they have claimed is a road levy. Is that, am I right?
Yeah,
road levy. And so the expectation, I don't know if I should, road fund. They say, oh, there's road fund as part of the component of tax. So what is happening to that money? You use it to construct the road or maintain them.
In 8 years, if the road fund were able to cater for everything, I'm sure the MPP would have left us with a lot of N1 highways.
It could be
during the 8
poor
years.
as a result of poor management.
No, it's not. You see, the truth of the matter is that we are a developing country, and our needs keep on outstripping our resources. You understand? So yes, you would want to do it, but then because you are also pumping extra money into subsidy, which is actually ending up subsidizing the rich in the cities.
The poor people are not benefiting.
Precisely, that's the point I was making about the hospitals. The rich man in Accra drives on a smooth road. Within 5-10 minutes, he's in the nearest hospital or clinic.
So why shouldn't it be the case that government would ensure that the intended targets are the right beneficiaries and that indeed they do benefit, rather than removing
that precisely is what the government is trying to do now. So now I take that money, over 400 million that I was supposed to have used, I'll take it now and give hospitals to the places, give school buildings, so that the people who ordinarily would say, okay, we are taking transport because we are being subsidized, will not have the need for that transportation to that hospital or that transportation. Of course, they will still need transport to other places, but then the reliance on transportation and therefore the use of subsidy is reduced, because the reason for traveling has been brought to their doorsteps now. You understand the point I'm making? So that is why you look at the thing and say, look, I am subsidizing the rich in Accra. You and I drive our various cars in Accra, and we are buying petrol just as the man who is a farmer in Suhum or in Krabokota, and he may not even have his own car. But he's supposed to be benefiting from subsidy because he bought a car. But in the end, you and I are the ones who are benefiting out of that. You understand?
Yeah,
so that is why,
in conclusion,
it is that is why it is important that let's look at it. Yes, it is obviously everybody knows that in Ghana, the moment you touch petrol, you've touched everything. But in the end, if government must come down and do that which he had promised to do. For instance, give us the 200 school buildings that you have promised to give us.
Okay.
Give us the hospitals that you have promised to bring to our doorstep. And so when you do that, then our reliance on transportation to that place, so we will not have the need to exercise that.
You want to see visible evidence of developmental projects.
Are the things that,
okay.
Those are the things for which
you want to hold your horses on that note. Edward, is the interesting debate is that Masa, if you know you increase it by such percentage and you refuse to increase from 2011, now 2013, boom, why didn't you increase it small? You know, people are wondering, why now? You know?
I would want to answer that question now, but I think that it's also important to, because you made a point that, look, people are saying that there's road fund.
Yes.
The levy on there. That is meant for the road. We have the energy fund, we have the energy levy, then we have the exploration levy and those things. The truth of the matter is that these are taxes or levies that were there from day one.
Okay.
That's the first point. But even with all those things, let's even, granted, and I've always tried to explain this for people to understand. I do not want to agree just because somebody came on air and made a statement that, look, as a country we have been paying tax, and therefore since we are paying tax, there's no way we would have been paying subsidy. And so these monies that we're paying, if you are saying that you are subsidizing that, we are still paying tax and that you could even still use that for the various...
They said you are robbing Peter to pay Paul.
You see, there are three main things that we use to determine the final price you pay at the pump. Okay. That's at the fuel station if you were to go to Shell, Total, or anywhere to pay. Now, you need the ex-refinery price. The ex-refinery price is just normally, after the refinery has decided to get the crude, processed it, the cost of processing it after they put a margin on it. Okay. So that is what then you have the distribution margin. Then you have the tax component. Assuming that in this country we're not subsidizing, from the ex-refinery to the ex-pump, we should have been paying roughly, that was before the increases, we should have been paying 221.73 pesos per liter for petrol. Out of this, the tax component is 21 pesos.
Okay.
If you take the tax that you have seen there, the tax component is 21 pesos.
Okay.
So it means that if you take the tax component out, we should have been paying 200.73 pesos per liter. So it means that let's even assume now, regardless of this, that Ghana has decided that we're not going to be taxing petroleum products, that would have been absurd. But in any case, let's even assume that we're not going to be taxing petroleum products. People should have been paying for petrol, a liter, at least 200 Ghana cedis. Okay. But you and I know that we're paying 170 pesos. I said 200 pesos. 200 pesos. But you and I know that we're paying 170 pesos per liter. Yes. So it means that for every liter anybody bought, government still subsidized every liter by 30 pesos. You understand what I mean? Okay. So I just don't want this argument when people begin to say that, look, we're yes, you must look at the net effect. Okay. That is one thing. But now to your question as to why government did not,
from 2011.
Yes, 2011 and did it. I am one single person who is not worried whenever that debate comes up. There are people who think that there must be full deregulation of the system. Yes. And that you should allow the markets to determine the prices. So for example, if today crude oil prices are maybe 120, it should immediately be transmitted through the system and you should get it to the consumer. There are those who think that, look, let's find a way, because in any case, crude prices in themselves are very volatile. Today is this, tomorrow is that. And therefore sometimes, and that is always the thinking of government. But look, if the prices are going up, we are hoping that no North Korean president will decide to try a nuclear warhead, or maybe an Iranian president will issue a statement that will let crude prices go up. Okay. These are funny things that can really let crude prices go up. So maybe if the thing goes up, then maybe suddenly the thing comes down again. So sometimes government thinks that, look, let's see if we can contain the situation. Besides that, there's this argument that people say, look, for businesses, you know that for a whole year you have made your projections, and for energy cost, you have indicated that for energy cost it's going to cost me, say, X plus Y. Okay. And I'm planning for the whole year. Suddenly you have a situation where intermittently this thing changes. So you see that consistently in terms of your own planning, your energy cost is always not accurate because you are unable to plan. Yeah. And these are some of the effects of when you have issues of crude oil being so, the prices being so volatile. Okay. Now, government's thinking has always been that over a period of time there will be subsidy, we should be able to pay it, and that they should be at levels that are manageable.
Okay.
The reason why this conversation has come up is just because that the levels got to a point that we could not longer take it. The case must be made that government has not taken off all the subsidies. All the government has done is to reduce the subsidies to a level that it can manage.
Oh, okay. So it's not
it's
true.
It's not true that government has taken off the subsidies.
Absolute removal of subsidies.
Because we still have 8% on petrol, we have 6% on diesel, we have 53%, is it 53 or 52% on kerosene?
52.
Premix, we have 73. You understand?
Yeah.
MGO and RFO, there are all subsidies on them. So it gives you a fair idea that all the government has done is that, look, let's try to reduce this subsidy to levels that will be sustainable, that are manageable by the economy. And that's exactly what we are doing. So, I mean, I wouldn't be worried if even this debate goes on for further weeks in terms of whether we should fully deregulate the system. But I've always said, and people are quick to add, to compare the telecom industry to the petroleum industry. They say, look, they've deregularized the telecom industries. And what is happening is that it's even pushing prices down because there's competition. Okay. And so NCA just has this of just ensuring that people follow the regulations. They have no business in fixing prices. So MPA should equally be allowed to do that. You see, my grandmother in the village is not worried about teleco. Whether you increase credit card prices or not. But if you increase the price of kerosene, you increase the price of diesel, it affects the person. So when people talk about food deregulation, one of the things we need to do is that, and that is what government is seriously doing, is to study the experiences of other countries. We were all here when we heard what happened in Nigeria, when Nigeria even attempted it. Yeah. You heard what happened. Nigeria was almost grounded to a halt.
Total chaos.
So we need to study the experiences of other countries. What are the places they went wrong? Is it possible to improve on that? So that when we are now importing food deregulation in the system, we should do that and do it properly.
Just a follow-up. The argument also has been made that perhaps the international oil price is not up to the level as one would say during the MPP, around 147 per barrel, and yet NDC you are charging much higher than what the MPP did. You have a higher international rate, a lower international rate compared to the regime of the MPP, yet your prices are much higher than theirs.
Unfortunately, that would be very simplistic for two reasons. The indicators for determining crude prices is not only the international crude price. Okay. So that's one thing. Secondly, the 147 that we're talking about was just a flash in the pan.
Under the MPP?
Under the MPP. Was just a flash in the pan.
Was it a day or two? Or?
It was just at most, I'm not too sure, but at most maybe it was a week. At most. Oh, okay. At most. But you see, the argument then was that, and I will tell you the truth, I happen to have been one of those people who made those arguments. The argument then was that, I said, look, the international price was going up, and therefore we felt that it was becoming unbearable for Ghanaians. You were not ready because as at that time, MPP was just so ready in implementing the full cost recovery. We said, fine, you can still do that if you want to move on to total deregulation. But in doing that, our tax component by then was hovering between 49 and 51% of the total build-up. Okay. And I still can remember exactly what the late Professor Mills said. He said, look, yes, I agree that we have no control over the international crude prices, but at least we have control over our taxes. Okay, so if you think that the international crude price is going so high, reduce the tax component, because we're talking about tax components of about 50% of the total build-up. So reduce that. Then people can have some cushion. That was the argument. That was never done. If you compare the total tax component at that time to now, the difference is very clear.
What was the percentage this time?
We are looking at now a total component of about 20-something%. Okay. As at that time, it was around 40-something%, almost 50% thereabout. So you then ask yourself, when people say, look, when the late prof said that I will reduce price drastically, all that he meant was that, yes, you don't have control over the international market. You don't have control. You may have control over the exchange rate, but at least you have control over the taxes that you can go back to Parliament and tell them to reduce. Okay. Yeah.
On that note, let me go for a quick commercial break. When I come back, Kobi Fiagbe would have his stand and we'll proceed with the discussion. Stay with me. Hello, welcome back. This is still Majority Caucus. Just in case you just tune in, we are live on your multi-TV. My name is Ali Dawood. I'm here tonight with these two powerful gentlemen. Yeah, Kobi, Edward has taken the trouble to take us through the statistics and the formula for the prices. But I don't think that the political debate will just end there. It looks to me like some people are really not interested. Like I said on Metro TV that morning, you could see Ababina Sama was so desperate. He wanted to make, score some cheap point there, except that I didn't fly at the end of the day. I was very happy. But I thought that people should be sincere in their discussion. Kobe, are we going to see the end of political debate regarding fuel prices?
I thought we had seen the last because in the last election, fuel pricing...
Amazingly, it didn't feature.
Because the government held the fort for 2 years running, almost right, without increasing fuel prices. And so it kind of like stayed the hand of the opposition. Even if they had introduced it, it would have gone to the benefit of the government of the day, because this is a government that, against all odds, held the prices stable for 2 years. So I guess that's why. Now, with what His Excellency John Mahama and his team are signaling right now, if they are able to do it and do it effectively, and I believe they would, then what is going to happen is that it's not going to play again in 2016, because the factors would have been very clear for everybody to see, and so it's not. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, we are likely to see the end. We've seen it. It wasn't a major factor in 2012, and if we do it right again.
Let me ask you. Sorry to cut you in. Some people have made an argument that really this time around they were not too worried or surprised at the percentage increment. The only concern is that the problem seems to have been compounded by the doom. So really that's their concern, and not the percentage didn't seem to generate so much rancor. I don't know if that view is right. Is that a view you share?
It's a view that anybody who is a victim of doom, so like I am, would hold. Oh, we are suffering, we don't have light, and then suddenly, even those of us who have managed to get generator, we need to go and get fuel, and then suddenly the price of fuel is going to go up. So obviously you'll be concerned, but it goes beyond that.
Okay.
And I believe that the vast majority of Ghanaians know the reality. Look, let me give you an example.
Good.
In 2000, prior to the election, a gallon of petrol was being sold at 6,400. The MPP held a rally at no, not Bukum, Mamprobi.
Kufo was holding a gallon of petrol.
Mamprobi, near my house, and they, and they held a gallon. Should Ghanaians be made to buy a gallon of petrol at 6,400 cedis? That is 640 cedis right now, right?
No, that would have been 6 pesos.
64 cedis. 64 cedis.
6 cedis.
6 cedis, 40 pesos.
No, 6 cedis. No, 6 cedis.
40 pesos.
6 cedis, 40 pesos.
I'm sure. No, not 6 cedis. It's not 6 cedis. 6 cedis would have been.
Pesos.
Yeah, I think it's 64 pesos or something.
No, it's 6 cedis, 40 pesos.
No, 6 cedis would have been equivalent. Yeah, it's 64 pesos.
64 pesos. 64 pesos.
I hope I'm right.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. 64 pesos.
Yes.
Should Ghanaians be made to buy petrol at that price? Now, the message indirectly was that should they come to power, they were going to reduce it from that 64 pesos to a step or two below, right? Except that when they came to power, they found the need to increase it, not just by a step or two.
I think by 100%. Big.
1,000 Ghana cedis. 1,000.
That's 10,000.
10,000.
That's 1 cedi.
That's 1,000 Ghana cedis. Then, a few months after that, boom, to 2,000.
Serious?
Yeah, that was how they handled the situation. Now, you know what? Ghanaians never gave a whimper. You know why? Because most people knew at the time that they were playing politics with the fuel pricing thing, and they knew that they were then going to reduce the prices. Of course, some people believed them, but most Ghanaians, so there was no whimper, and they allowed it to happen. I am saying that the government has given us a stark reality of the situation. Okay. The stark reality is that, look, I want my people to enjoy subsidy. But the subsidy I am paying is not getting to the people I want to enjoy the subsidy. It is getting to Ali Dawood, who is in Accra and enjoying.
No, I must also benefit from the subsidies.
No, you mustn't.
Why not?
You already have a good road. You already have access to.
That makes sense.
Yes. You understand? The people we want to enjoy the subsidy are the people in the hinterland, the people who don't have good roads, the people who don't have the hospitals near them, the people who don't have the schools near them. Okay. Meanwhile, they are not enjoying the subsidy.
I want you to.
I'm talking to Ejako in Fachin Kobo or whatever they call it, Bripro, whatever. You are until you are in Bripro,
Kukuruntumi and all those
whatever.
areas.
Those are the people I'm talking to. They are the people who must enjoy the subsidy. They are not getting the subsidy.
Absolutely.
So now let's take the subsidy off and deny Ali Dawood in Accra that subsidy, so that we can build a hospital for Antiya in Bripro, and we can build the schools for Ejako and we can build for Afonyonam in Angloga. You understand? That is the point.
Talking about benefits, people really benefiting from government subsidy and all those policies geared at making sure that some mitigative measures in place. The gas, Edward, the gas situation, how is it? Are we going to see the surge by taxi drivers trying to use what is otherwise meant for domestic consumption?
No, before my brother comes to answer that question,
quickly,
let me tell you. If I am a taxi driver and there is a loophole, I will exploit it.
But let's be fair. I don't think it is only the taxi drivers. There are private drivers, private owners of their own cars. Yeah.
If
everybody is taking advantage of it. Yeah.
So I will not blame them. Okay. I will say that the system must work at correcting those things. But yes, notwithstanding, the fact that those things are there means that we must work to eliminate them and ensure that the subsidy gets to the market woman, gets to the kitchen of the
let me have your take on that. What is the ministry doing to ensure that, as for this one, it really works?
I think that the fundamental reasons why LPG was heavily subsidized and the policy started very far, that's under Gerolins, was because of the fact that our environment was seriously being degraded. Okay. And we felt that there was a need to introduce LPG as an alternative source of fuel. Okay. Besides that, we also realized that to be able to ensure that we give people economic incentives to opt for that, we needed to heavily subsidize the product. So our first target, really was households, households generally. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not too sure, I don't always want to use that. We had situations where some unintended consumers also came in. Yes. Because the original policy was not targeted at vehicular users. Okay. And here it could be private or commercial. Yeah. But the truth of the matter now is that we have situations where these people are also using it. Our statistics suggest that about 70 to 80% of LPG imported into the country consumed by vehicles. So serious. You only have about 20% going to what they call it, households. Besides that, where we have even the worst case in terms of deforestation, as you go towards the north, the situation is even a bit dire. Why do I say so? Northern Volta, Northern Brown Half, Upper East, Upper West Northern region, the total consumption there is just between 3 to 5% of LPG. So it means that a greater quantity of it is consumed in Accra, Koforidua, and Takoradi. Okay. These are the two places that consume the product. I mean, it's a cleaner form of energy, so even if vehicles are using it, no problem with that. And I think that Kobe made a point that I agree with him. Taxi drivers or even private users of vehicles are economic beings, will make advantage of any economic situation that comes in. And so I do not for a moment fault taxi drivers or any other things for using that. But government felt that the reason why this product was subsidized was because we wanted some specific group of people to use. These things are not getting to them. We cannot for a moment contemplate the option by saying that, look, taxi drivers should stop using it. We can't say that. No. They can use it. And for me, even somebody who has a science background, I can tell you that it is as cleaner energy as compared to petrol or diesel, and therefore I will encourage that. But what the policy what government needed to do was to re-evaluate the policy and look at the policy and say, look, this policy that we're doing, is it really meeting our aim? Because the aim was that let's make it very cheap. Let these people use it so that they don't go into the forest to go and do. The truth of the matter, the people are not even getting it, and therefore they are going back to the forest to destroy the forest.
So the strategy.
So what is being done is the government says, look, first let me increase the reason by 50%.
Yeah.
That we have done, even though there's still 15% subsidy on it.
Yes.
But in place of that, is if you go to the village, you can go and put a gas pump in front of somebody's house. He may not use gas. You know why?
No.
He will use gas because, you see, before you use gas, there are certain equipment you need. You need a gas stove.
Yeah.
You need a cylinder. Yes. The person does not even have money to buy those things. You are telling him to use gas. So even if you bring the thing there, he won't use it.
Go with the coal pot.
He'll go with the coal pot. So what government has decided to do is, so what government has decided to do is that, look, you see, and we started a pilot project. I don't know if you realize, the last meet the press that Dr. Tinyeje, then Minister for Energy, gave, he had indicated that, look, we were working with Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company to manufacture some special cylinders. And then we'll also get gas stoves, distribute them at various households, particularly in the village. And we started a pilot program in the northern sector last year, where we give you the cylinder with gas. Then we give you a gas stove. So every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, or every 4 weeks, depending on the period, we come with a new cylinder with gas, take it and take the other one. But these cylinders can only be filled at specialized areas. So you can't even take it and go to any place to get it filled. Say that one, the people will get the product. Two, it will be convenient to them. Three, we would have been subsidizing those current equipment that they need to be able to work. When we did our calculations, we realized that the people will really be saving money if they did that. So basically that is it. And our hope is that this year we are continuing with that to take care of the increases that we have.
In conclusion, 15 seconds, your concluding remarks quickly.
My concluding remarks are that I can understand the situation that Ghanaians are going through. I can appreciate the fact that they are worried about these things. But are the managers of the energy sector working? Yes. Are they working to ensure that these problems are solved? Yes. Are they really convinced that they can solve it? Yes, they can do it. And all the promise I can give on behalf of the other actors within the sector is that these problems will really be resolved.
It's unfortunate we didn't have time to talk about fuel smuggling. About Kobe, your concluding remarks before we draw the curtains on the show.
Seriously speaking, I have a lot of hope in the presidency of John Mahama because I know the man and I know what he wants to achieve for the people of Ghana. I know how he intends to make life a lot easier for the people of Ghana. So I don't have any. My other happiness is in the fact that this is a gentleman who has been in the ministry since the MPP days. And so he knows that this is just a continuation of the policy that has been running and a policy that we have never repudiated. You understand? It is not as though the NDC repudiated the policy of full deregulation. No, in any case, even it was a policy that we started before the NPP came and started running with. And so, seriously speaking, if we must get things to the people of Ghana at the very grassroots, then we must not be expending money on the rich who can afford it in the first place and in the name of subsidy. You are sitting in Accra. Look, let me tell you, if we are...
In 15 minutes.
Yeah, in 15 seconds, sorry. If we are able to remove subsidies, we will create a lot more opportunity for even AGI to employ more people in Ghana.
And on that note, I'm sorry to cut you short. And viewers, this is where we draw the curtains on tonight's edition of Majority Caucus. Make a date with me on Thursday, same time, same channel. I'll be back right here with you. Till then, enjoy the rest of your night. Bye-bye.
But you didn't give me the chance to